What's up, YouTube? Scott here with the Carrera Cafe. I apologize, it's been a few weeks since I brought you guys a new video. I have been in Hooptie hell recently with my most recent car purchase, and it's kept me quite busy. So today I'm going to document and kind of get you guys up to speed on my latest vehicle purchase. A little bit of foreshadowing, I bought the car almost 2 months ago, and it's only been in my driveway 4 days out of the last 2 months, and that is not consecutively. This channel is primarily and always going to be focused around Porsche content and general enthusiast car content. Occasionally, I do buy vehicles that are not Porsches just to kind of see what it's like on the other side, to see if the grass is greener. More often than not, I buy something that's not a Porsche product, and 6 months later or less, I don't own it anymore. I've had about 40 vehicles in my lifetime, and I've got a list of them below. The purpose of this channel is to just kind of educate folks who might be in the market for a similar vehicle, and you can kind of learn from some of my experiences, some of the good and the bad. If that sounds like something appealing to you all, follow along, and I look forward to bringing you guys more content, and thank you all for the support. With that said, let's kind of dive into what's happened over the last 2 months, where the vehicle is at now, and what do I think is going to happen next. All right, guys. So let's get into what's happened over the last 2 months. So I tend to buy cars every 3-4 months just to experience different vehicles. And for the most part, I don't go buy brand new cars. I've mentioned this in some of my other videos. My only real new car purchases are pretty strategic. They're usually either low production things that I don't think I'll lose money on, or maybe they're a Toyota or Lexus product because they just tend to depreciate slower because of the manufacturing and ordering process. So the majority of my videos are pre-owned cars that have already lost quite a bit of value, making them appealing to some of us who are willing to deal with some maintenance and repairs. So one of the cars that I have always thought looked great from the outside was the full-size Land Rover Range Rover. So that's the largest version, largest SUV that Land Rover produces at this time. And I've always had a thing for the L322 series Range Rover, which is 2001 to 2012. They were kind of more rugged. They were a little bit BMW back then. I liked the harder lines. But unfortunately, very clean L322 examples at this point are starting to go up in value, and I just can't justify buying a $20,000 L322 anymore, given its lacking technology and the reliability concerns, right? So the next generation is known as the L405 generation, and that was produced from 2013 to 2021 with a little facelift thrown in there. And it actually shares a lot of the engine similarities to the prior vehicles, late generation. So I'm of the opinion that I bought the most reliable of the unreliable Range Rover, if that makes sense. So the vehicle that I wanted, I had a few requirements in that search. It needed to be the 5-liter supercharged V8, which is where I came up with the statement of the most reliable of the unreliable. The 5.0 supercharged V8 has been produced for quite a while. You could have gotten that engine in the older chassis. And, you know, they're notorious for some certain repair items that we'll chat about. But I began my search about 5 months ago for an L405, and you know, my requirements were not that hard to find. Like I said, I wanted a 5-liter supercharged V8. It needed to be a clean title car. There could be a minor on the Carfax, and I wouldn't really care. It needed to have the Tier 2 or better Meridian stereo. So there's 3 different Meridian stereos in this vehicle, and I wanted ambient lighting. So the configurable lighting inside, I don't know why, it was just important to me. And I began that search. And what happened is my wife and I were in Joshua Tree earlier last year, and I use Turo to rent cars when I'm out of town. So I can drive cool or different things. You know, if I go for work, I use Enterprise or the big guys so I can rent a brand new car. But I rented a full-size Range Rover when we were in Joshua Tree last year. And I was just blown away at the driving position and the build quality. And I thought to myself, you know what, if I can own one of these and it not be a total pain in the ass, I think it'd be worth it. So that's when I started my search. Because I have owned one other Land Rover product and it was not a good experience. I had a 2022 Land Rover Defender 110. Really cool looking, rugged off-road vehicle. It only had 20,000 miles on it during my ownership, and it smelled like coolant the entire time. Land Rover couldn't figure it out. It had all kinds of rattles and creaks. It just didn't seem like it was built very well. I think it was more almost like a luxury Ford Bronco, in my opinion, and it carried quite a big price tag for that amount of money. So I figured I'd give Land Rover a second try. So I landed on a 2016 Land Rover Range Rover Supercharged Autobiography. So when you're looking at these L405s, there's a base model, then there is I believe it's Westminster package, and then there's an Autobiography package, and that's the order from lowest to highest end. When I got the window sticker for my car, I laughed because there was 0 options listed because it was the Autobiography. It pretty much had everything included. There's some a la carte things, like you could have gotten, I think, rear, tray tables or some fold-out picnic stuff for the rear tailgate or something along those lines. So I always search within probably 500 miles from my house, and I ended up finding one in my backyard that had actually been for sale for about 2 months from a dealer that I've bought things from before. So I figured, you know what, I'm gonna go drive it and give it a shot. Because at least buying it from a dealer, there's some protections, even though we're talking about a used car. And this isn't coming from a Land Rover dealer, by the way. It's a big name in my town, but it's not a Land Rover store. So I went and drove it. We negotiated. Cosmetically, it does need some minor things here and there. The Land Rover, Range Rover letters, for some reason, fade on these vehicles. And there was some scratches and things here that I've already fixed. But for the most part, cosmetically, it seemed pretty put together. And mechanically, what was important to me is that it was quiet, the engine. One of the big problems that these vehicles can have is the timing chain, and you typically can start to hear a rattle on cold start, and this vehicle had a quiet cold start. However, during my test drive, which I did intentionally beat the car pretty good, taking around some corners, a suspension fault came up. So went back to the dealer and said, of course, sales guys like, what can we do to earn your business today? We all know that trick. However, I mentioned I have done business with these guys before, and I said, look, I like the car, but there are some things mechanically that need to be addressed. And we actually wrote in the WEO that repairs were to be made at a Land Rover store, and we agreed on a price. And mind you, this car is a 2016. Its original MSRP was $144,000, and you can now pick one of these up for less than $30,000. So this thing depreciated over $100,000 in that 8 years. And of course, we all know why. That's typically based on the Land Rover, Range Rover ownership. When you compare it to other vehicles, you're typically, it's going to be in the shop. I think I've heard the saying, if there's no oil under it, there's no oil in it. We're going to find out if that's true. So right out of the gate, not off to a good start with the suspension fault, but I trusted this dealer and said, hey, you know what? We can write up a deal as long as these things are in writing. So I went ahead and purchased the vehicle. This was December 29th, so I used the end of the year as a leverage to get a good deal. Dealership wanted to sell a car for end of the year, and I was willing to buy one with the in writing that repairs were going to be made. I don't suggest that unless you truly trust the dealer. So about 3 weeks went by. Car was at Land Rover, and I got it back. So the suspension fault, they replaced a sensor and just kind of cleared the codes and let me drive it for a bit. Of course, within 20-30 miles, the suspension fault came back, along with 2 additional issues. We now had a coolant light, so the coolant reservoir had been pretty much bone dry, and I could smell coolant. The check engine light came on, and I did pull the codes, and I got 6 evap related codes. Mind you, during all this, the car is running very well. It's fine. Without looking at the dash, you wouldn't know that anything is wrong. So within 12 hours, I went ahead and dropped it back off at the store I purchased it from and said, guys, figure it out. I bought a car with no dash lights, and it needs to be that way. So another 2 weeks of diagnosis. The Land Rover dealer replaced the crankcase vent valves, which is they're pretty cheap. They're right on top of the engine. They put in a new fuel cap, and again, those were for the two check engine lights, or that was for the check engine light codes. And then they diagnosed the coolant leak back to the water pump. So in that 2 weeks, the dealer replaced the water pump, the crankcase vent valves, and the fuel cap, again, at their expense. I picked the vehicle back up once again. No dash lights when I picked it up, was really happy. Drove it for less than 12 hours, and I could smell coolant again. And I woke back up on the Saturday morning, picked it up on Friday, coolant underneath the car, and low coolant light again. Topped off the coolant, drove around a bit, and of course, check engine light came back on too. Now, instead of 6 evap codes, there's 1 evap code, so I'm not sure what that is. It's probably still a leak somewhere. It could be intake related or sensor related, but we are still leaking coolant. So again, drove it back to the dealer within 12 hours or so, and it is back at Land Rover right now, and they are working on it again, all at no cost to me. So kudos to the dealer for not backing out of our deal. They're going to continue to throw parts at it, but unfortunately, our last diagnosis is not a good one. These vehicles are notorious for what's known as the coolant crossover pipe. This was a problem with some earlier V8 BMWs in the 2000s as well, but it's this plastic pipe that essentially just brings coolant from one side to the other side, but it's in a very inconvenient location. It's probably a $70 part, but we're talking maybe $3,000, $4,000 in labor. I just heard back from the dealer, and to my surprise, they are, instead of unwinding our deal, going to cover this as well. So I plan to gather all of the receipts kind of in a part 2 video to really see what's been invested so far in the vehicle. But we're not off to a great start with my second attempt at Land Rover as far as a Hooptie vehicle. Now, I fully went into this buying this vehicle knowing that it wasn't going to be perfect. We're talking about a 70,000 mile vehicle, 8 years old, and it's a Range Rover. Now, I'm of the opinion I could go out and buy a brand new Range Rover that's going to guaranteed to depreciate, right? We're no longer in the COVID times where if you got an allocation of a full size, you could flip it and make money. If you go buy a brand new Range Rover today, it will be worth less the day after you buy it. So I can either take the guaranteed depreciation, or I can take some less technology, because by the way, this engine I have is still put in new Range Rovers. I could have less technology and roll the dice with repairs and maintenance. So instead I bought a cash Range Rover, no car payment, and I'm gonna see how much it costs to own. I'm gonna document all of my repair costs during my ownership and divide that out almost like a monthly payment. And let's kind of compare what the cost of ownership is on this versus a brand new one that's guaranteed to depreciate. Again, I'm gonna still keep bringing you guys Porsche content, but in case some of you are curious what the grass is like on the other side, we're gonna spend a little bit of time with this Range Rover. I really hope that after I get these couple things sorted that I can spend some time behind it, because it is a really great car for the money. When you're in the driver's seat, it's a wonderful place to be, and there's a ton of value for the money, right? Massage seats, cooled seats, refrigerator in the middle, 360 cameras. This has the Tier 3 Meridian stereo, which is 1,700 watts and 29 speakers. I can't even find all 29 of them. Electric side steps, air suspension. I mean, it is so much car for under $30,000. The question is will it be at Land Rover more than it is in my driveway during my ownership? So we're gonna find out. One of the things that really pushed me over the edge to make this buying decision is there is a Motor Trend warranty out there that dealerships can slap on top of used cars. If it's less than 8 years old, I think there's a mileage limit tossed in there somewhere too, but less than 8 years old, you qualify for a 7,500 mile warranty. It is not bumper to bumper, but it does cover all the parts lubricated by oil, cooling systems, electric systems, suspension, and most importantly, timing chain related issues, which is the other problem that these vehicles can have. So the only reason I was really comfortable buying this was because I knew that I also have that warranty. So far, everything that's been done has actually been the dealer covering it and honoring our deal, but anything once we get past this is probably gonna fall under the warranty, so I'll document that as well for you guys. So that's the update on where things stand with my latest addition to my Hooptie fleet. And I will look forward to bringing you guys a part 2. Hopefully we can spend some time with the vehicle in the next week or two once that coolant crossover pipe has been replaced. As it starts to warm up here in the Midwest, I'm going to keep bringing you guys more videos as well. So thanks so much for joining. I appreciate you guys' support.